The sky over Santo Antonio Farm burned in shades of orange and red. That fateful March night in 1987, these weren't the colors of sunset. It was fire. Fire consuming everything. Maria Aparecida ran barefoot across the dirt road, her screams tearing through the darkness like blades. Behind her, the main barn collapsed in an explosion of sparks that rose to the heavens like condemned souls seeking redemption. "Help! Somebody help me! He's in there!" But no one answered. The farm, which during the day bustled with dozens of workers, was now strangely silent. Only the voracious crackling of flames and Maria's desperate screams echoed through the 500-hectare property when the firefighters finally arrived 3 hours later. 3 eternal hours. All that remained of the barn was smoldering. Rubble and the nauseating smell of burnt flesh, mixed with charred wood. The body of the owner, Colonel Augusto Mendez, was found at the center of destruction. Or rather, what remained of him. Forensic experts would determine he was already dead before the fire started. A .38 caliber bullet lodged in what was left of his skull confirmed it. This was no accident. It was murder, and the killer was among them. The white Fiat Uno kicked up clouds of dust on the dirt road. Inside, Helena Mendez gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles were white. Beside her on the passenger seat, a cardboard box contained all that remained of the investigation into her grandfather's murder. Yellowed documents, faded photos, and an old cassette tape recorder she hadn't yet found the courage to turn on. "Are you sure about this, daughter?" Her mother's voice echoed in her mind, the tone heavy with fear and pleading. "Let the dead rest. That place is cursed." But Helena couldn't let it go. Not after discovering the letter. The letter her grandmother Maria Aparecida had hidden for almost 4 decades, revealed only on her deathbed 3 months ago. A letter containing 5 words that changed everything. "I know who killed Augusto, but the old woman died before revealing the name." A sudden stroke took her while Helena was rushing to the hospital. The last words she managed to speak were, "The barn, the screams. The truth is buried." Buried where? Helena needed to find out. Santo Antonio Farm appeared ahead like a skeleton of its glorious past. The main house, a 2-story colonial building, had broken windows and peeling paint. What were once lush gardens was now an overgrown tangle of tall grass and twisted trees. And there at the back of the property, like a scar that never healed, was the barn. Or rather, where the barn had been, the structure was never rebuilt. The Mendez family abandoned the farm shortly after the murder, unable to bear the memories. For decades, the property passed from hand to hand, but no one stayed long. Stories of hauntings spread. Workers swore they heard screams coming from where the barn had stood. Some claimed to see a figure in flames walking through the property at nightfall. Helena didn't believe in ghosts. She believed in buried truths and secrets that destroy families. She parked the car in front of the main house and grabbed the box of documents. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky the same fateful colors as that night in 1987. She shivered, but not from cold. That's when she heard it, a scream, distant, muffled, but unmistakable. Coming from the direction of the barn's rubble, Helena dropped the box and ran. Helena's heart pounded as she crossed the abandoned land. Her feet stumbled over stones and roots, but she didn't slow down. The scream had ceased, but something more disturbing replaced it. A low, almost childlike crying. "Hello? Is anyone there?" Silence. She reached what remained of the barn. There wasn't much. Some charred beams that refused to rot completely, a piece of cracked concrete foundation, and ground vegetation that had taken over the space. But there was something new. Someone had recently dug. A hole about 1 meter in diameter revealed fresh earth beside the rubble, and next to the hole, partially covered by dirt, was a modern backpack, definitely not from 1987. Helena approached cautiously. Inside the backpack, a flashlight, water bottles, excavation tools, and a laptop. "Don't move." The voice behind her was male, young, and absolutely terrified. Helena turned slowly. A young man, no more than 25, was pointing a trembling gun at her. His face was dirty with earth and tears, his eyes wide with terror. "I'm not going to hurt you," Helena said, raising her hands. "My name is Helena Mendez. My grandfather—" "Mendez?" The young man lowered the gun slightly, confusion replacing some of the fear. "You're from the family?" "Was. My grandfather was murdered here." "Who are you?" Lucas Ferreira." He put away the gun. Helena noticed it was just an airsoft replica. "Shit, sorry. I thought you were them." "Them who?" Lucas looked around nervously, as if the growing shadows might be listening. "The ones who don't want the truth to come out. The ones who killed my grandfather." Helena felt her blood freeze. "Your grandfather? João Ferreira. He was the foreman here. He was at the farm the night of the fire." Lucas swallowed hard. "He was the main suspect in Colonel Augusto's murder. He was arrested, tried, convicted, spent 23 years in prison until he died there in 2010. But he was innocent. My family was destroyed because of it." Helena vaguely remembered. João Ferreira. Yes, he had been convicted of the murder. The evidence was circumstantial, but sufficient for a conviction in 1980s Brazilian justice. He had motive, a dispute over unpaid wages. He had opportunity. He was at the farm, and he had been seen arguing violently with the colonel hours before the death. "Why are you digging here?" Helena asked. Lucas stared at her intensely. "Because 3 days before dying, my grandfather sent me a letter. He said the proof of his innocence was buried under the barn. Said there was something hidden there from before the fire. Something that would reveal who really killed Colonel Augusto." "And did you find anything?" Lucas nodded slowly, his eyes filling with tears again. "I did. And now I understand why my grandfather never spoke. Why he chose to die in prison rather than reveal the secret." He turned and pointed to the hole he had dug, "Because down there isn't just one victim, there are 3. Helena descended into the hole with Lucas, her hands trembling as she held the flashlight he handed her. The beam of light revealed something that made her stomach turn. Bones, not just a few. Multiple skeletons, intertwined grotesquely, as if they had been thrown there without ceremony. And among the bones, partially preserved by the lime someone had poured over them, remains of clothes. Children's clothes. "My God," Helena whispered, bile rising in her throat. "There's more," Lucas said in a hoarse voice. He illuminated something in the corner of the grave, a metal box surprisingly intact. It was next to the bodies. He had opened it before Helena arrived. Inside, carefully preserved in thick plastic bags, photographs, dozens of them, and all showed the same horrible thing. Children, boys and girls apparently 8 to 12 years old, in poses no child should ever be in, and in each photograph in the background it was possible to recognize the barn of Santo Antonio Farm. Helena dropped the flashlight. No, it can't be, but it was. The dates on the backs of the photographs confirmed it, between 1982 and 1987, years before the murder. Her grandfather, the respected Colonel Augusto Mendez, pillar of the community, known philanthropist, was a monster. "There's also this," Lucas said, handing her a notebook. It was in the box. The notebook was a meticulous record, names, dates, places where the children came from, orphanages, poor families, street children, names of other people involved, and most shocking, client names. Powerful men, politicians, businessmen, even a judge. Helena felt the world spinning. Everything made sense now. Why the murder investigation had been so rushed. Why João Ferreira had been convicted so quickly. Why the farm had been abandoned in such haste. "My grandfather discovered it," Lucas said, his voice breaking. "João Ferreira discovered what was happening in the barn. He tried to go to the police, but look at the names in that notebook. The police chief who investigated the case is there. The prosecutor who convicted my grandfather too. So they framed him, Helena completed, the realization falling on her like a crushing weight. They killed my grandfather to silence him about this, and framed your grandfather to have a convenient scapegoat. Exactly. And my grandfather chose to go to prison rather than reveal the truth because Lucas couldn't finish. Helena finished for him, with tears streaming down her face, because if he revealed it, the powerful men on the list would make his family disappear. He sacrificed himself to protect them. That's when they heard the engines, cars, several, coming down the dirt road at high speed. Shit! Lucas grabbed Helena's arm. I told you I was being followed. They know I found it. Who? Some of the names in the notebook are still alive, and they have a lot to lose. Helena looked at the hole, at the evidence of decades of horror, at the proof that could finally bring justice or condemn them to the same death. The headlights approached, and then, from nowhere she heard it again, the screams, but this time Helena understood. They weren't screams of ghosts or hauntings. They were echoes of children who never had the chance to grow up. Their voices, trapped in that cursed place, demanding justice. We have to get out of here, now! Lucas pulled Helena out of the hole, but it was too late. 3 black SUVs surrounded the area. Men in suits got out, some clearly armed, and from the middle car, a figure descended that made Helena's heart stop. It was her uncle, Marcos Mendes, younger brother of her grandfather, whom she had always known as a respectable businessman. He smiled, a smile that didn't reach his cold eyes. Helena, my dear niece, you should have left the past where it belongs, buried. Uncle Marcos? Helena's voice was an incredulous whisper. You're involved in this. The man in his early 60s lit a cigar, the glow of the ember illuminating his face with a demonic light in the twilight. Involved. My dear, I was your grandfather's partner. The barn was our special enterprise. Helena felt bile rising again, but then, why kill him? Marcos took a long drag before responding, because the idiot Augusto developed a conscience. After 5 years of operating perfectly, he wanted to stop. Said he couldn't sleep at night anymore, that he was going to the police to confess everything. He laughed bitterly. Can you believe it? After everything we built, he was going to turn us in because of remorse. So you killed your own brother. Lucas spat the words. I saved my life. Saved all of us. Marcos gestured to the men around. You don't understand the power of the people involved. The judge in that notebook? Now he's a federal court justice. The businessman owns half the TV stations in the state. We couldn't let Augusto destroy everything. And João Ferreira? Helena asked. You destroyed an innocent man's life. He saw too much. Was always snooping where he shouldn't. It was convenient to have such a perfect suspect. The poor foreman angry at the rich boss. The narrative sold itself. But why burn the barn? Lucas questioned. To destroy the evidence. We took most of the photos and the record, but Augusto had hidden copies. We thought everything had been destroyed in the fire. Marcos looked at the hole. Apparently we were wrong. He buried the most damning evidence before we could get to it. Helena felt a cold fury taking over her. You're monsters. How many children? How many? Not as many as you think. 32 in 5 years, all from places where they wouldn't be searched for. Overcrowded orphanages, slums, families who sold them for a meal. His indifference was more shocking than the confession, and only 3 are buried here. The others were disposed of in other places. Lucas lunged forward, but one of the henchmen drew a gun. Stay still, boy, Marcos continued, relentless. The problem is that you two now know too much. And unlike João Ferreira, you won't have the option to keep silent. You're going to kill us here. Helena challenged. Going to add 2 more bodies to your collection. It'll look like an accident. 2 young people exploring an abandoned farm. Trapped in the rubble, tragic. He waved to the men. Make it look like the floor gave way. Bury them with the evidence. The men began to approach. That's when Helena remembered the recorder. The cassette tape recorder her grandmother had left in the box. She had turned it on before leaving the car, hoping to find perhaps an old message. She didn't expect it to still be working, recording. transmitting via Bluetooth to her cell phone in the car, which was set up to live stream to the cloud. Everything Marcos had said was being recorded and transmitted in real time. "There's one thing you should know, Uncle," Helena said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I didn't come here unprepared." Marcos laughed. "Bluffing doesn't work on me, child. It's not a bluff." She pointed to his pocket. "See the red light on your jacket? It's the laser from my security system. If anything happens to me, everything you've said in the last 15 minutes is automatically sent to the federal police, to the public prosecutor's office, to the press. Everything." It was a lie. But Marcos didn't need to know that. The man's face paled. "You're bluffing. Want to risk it?" "The recording includes names, murder confessions, everything. Even if you kill me, you're finished." It was Lucas who realized what Helena was doing. He joined the lie, and I uploaded all the photos and the notebook to a cloud server before you arrived. If I don't check in every hour, everything becomes public automatically. Another lie. But now Marcos was visibly nervous. "You have no idea who you're messing with. We can make you disappear along with your families." "You can try," Helena said, with a confidence she didn't feel. "But how many people can you make disappear before someone notices? My mother knows where I am. Lucas's friends know he was here. How many bodies until this becomes national news?" The standoff stretched for long seconds. That's when the blue and red lights exploded in the darkness. Sirens, multiple ones. Marcos turned, incredulous, as federal police vehicles surrounded the location. Helena smiled, tears of relief streaming down her face. "I told you I didn't come unprepared." The recording was real. It just wasn't in my pocket. It was on my cell phone, streaming live to a friend in the federal police. She heard everything. Everything. The expression on Marcos's face was one of total shock when agents surrounded him, weapons drawn. "Marcos Mendez, you're under arrest for homicide, conspiracy, child abuse, and a list of crimes that will take the rest of your miserable life to be read." As they dragged Marcos and his henchmen away, one of the agents approached Helena. "Captain Rodriguez, federal police. Your friend sent me the live stream. We got everything. His confession is enough to open investigations on everyone on that list." "And the remains?" Lucas asked, pointing to the hole. "Our forensic team is on the way. We'll give these children the dignified burial they deserve, and we'll find the others. All of them." Helena looked at the place where the barn had been. For a moment, she could swear she saw small silhouettes in the darkness, children, smiling, waving, and then they disappeared. Finally at peace, the screams had ceased. The newspaper headline said it all: child abuse. Network dismantled, 47 powerful men arrested in Operation Black Barn. Helena folded the newspaper and placed it on the newly inaugurated grave. It wasn't her grandfather's grave. He didn't deserve to be honored. It was the memorial for the 32 identified children. Their names, finally known, were engraved in black marble. Isabella Santos, 9 years old. Miguel Oliveira, 10 years old. Julia Ferreira, 8 years old. The list continued. Each name a stolen life. Each name a destroyed family. Lucas was beside her, also reading the names. "My grandfather knew about all of them," he said softly. "That's why he never spoke. He couldn't live with the guilt of having discovered too late to save them. But he protected them in the end," Helena replied. "He ensured the truth was buried where one day it would be found. He knew that someday someone would dig deep enough." Marcos Mendez's conviction had caused an earthquake in the establishment. 2 senators resigned. A Supreme Court justice was being investigated. 3 CEOs of major companies were arrested. The network was bigger and more rotten than anyone imagined, and it all started with screams that never stopped. Helena placed flowers on the memorial, white roses. "One for each child, you can finally rest," she whispered. "The world knows the truth now. You haven't been forgotten." As she and Lucas walked to the car, Helena looked one last time at Santo Antonio Farm. The property would be demolished. In its place, they would build a support center for victims of child abuse. From evil, finally, something good would be born. But as she got in the car, Helena had one last disturbing thought. Marcos had mentioned other farms, other locations, places where clients took the children. How many other barns existed out there? How many other screams still hadn't been heard? She looked at Lucas. "This isn't over, you know," he nodded. "I know. But now we know it's worth digging, worth searching, worth listening to the screams, because that's what the victims deserved, to be heard, to be remembered, to be avenged, and the screams in the barn, which had echoed for almost 40 years, had finally fulfilled their purpose. The truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds a way to come to light, always.